Welcome back to the discussion, Keeping Cyber Systems Safe in Defense, sponsored by Micro Focus Government Solutions on Federal News Network. My guest today is Matt Connor, Chief Information Security Officer at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and I'm your moderator, Scott Maucione. So Matt, we were talking a lot about the decision-making in AI. How are you taking in decision-making when it comes to top-down, the people like you, and then bottom-up from, your employees who are seeing issues happen and stuff like that?
I would be suspect of any process, any activity at NGA that isn't underpinned by data, right? So we're trying to apply, objective empirical data to virtually every process, personnel, process, and technology. From the top-down perspective, for good or for bad, we have a number of different scorecards that we use to communicate metrics and value. So the IC has a number of different scorecards. I'm using a scorecard loosely. There are other names for these things, but bottom line is they're views of metrics that connote a cybersecurity risk posture, either a list of high-value targets and protections associated with them, a list of vulnerability status, patch status, those kinds of things. So on the IC and the DoD side, we are definitely complying with the different metric demands from oversight to make sure that they have enterprise cybersecurity visibility. Metrics, data, good and bad, right? So I mean, they are often descriptive metrics of how many of which in each. Where we're looking to do is, continue that analysis, and this is another place where we're using AI ML to determine what does it mean. And so we do have a cybersecurity enterprise visualization and analysis service within the cybersecurity program that we built a data lake to collect this telemetry. And we're using it, interrogating it for example, continuous monitoring purposes of highlighting systems, with patterns of not patching or patterns of miscompliance, those kinds of things, patterns of vulnerability disclosure programs through like the DoD's bug bounty, those kinds of things. The power of data is being able to step back and look at that not as a moment in time or not as a discrete system, but look at that as a piece of a whole. So we're using data to understand and map and communicate our mission relevant terrain for cyber, which is a DoD imperative to understand how we accomplish operational missions and what the IT underneath it is that supports that. We can describe the security posture of that through metrics and data. I mentioned earlier personnel processes, and we've done things like a health of the occupation report for cybersecurity by providing information about average degrees, average certifications, average retention time, average recruiting time, average compliance, those kinds of things. It gives us a lot of powerful insight into our workforce and allows us to make decisions about how we forecast our cybersecurity future, whether it be emphasis on STEM degrees, whether it be from historically underrepresented populations, where it be from really any vantage point. We make data-driven cases based on our personnel, and that uses us to guide our decisions.
Great. And I'd like to get into that a little bit more in a second here, but I wanted to ask you first, since we're talking about top down and bottom up, the amount of cyber hygiene that you do at this point. Obviously that's important because no matter what you do, if the cyber hygiene isn't good, then you're in trouble. So, bottom down in that sense, how are you making sure that your employees are following the correct rules, that they're doing the things that they need to do to stay safe?
Absolutely. So we have multiple processes that are driven by data that help us curate and manage the cybersecurity posture of our enterprise. This could be something as simple as a meta-analysis of systems reporting in through endpoint detection and response for our manager of managers and looking at which ones haven't gotten all the modules, haven't gotten all the patches deployed, or haven't responded to a bug bounty, those kinds of things. Day to day, our teams are using that kind of data to interface with programs, to apply those needed patches, to enroll them in the right security services. All that's driven by data. So I mean, that's a pretty tactical view of that from a ConMon perspective, and we've got a technology and monitoring division who focus strictly on that. So when we yield an authorization decision based on a validation of controls in a specific operational environment to a specific risk posture, watching that for drift is a key function of continuous monitoring. And we've got a team who takes that telemetry from either credentialed scans, patch data, endpoint data, multiple other agents reporting in, and looks at that for action and escalation We need the chief of risk management to engage this program to correct some problem with their baseline, all the way up through the director level. One of the things that our current CIO has really been a strong proponent of is as we evaluate and adjudicate risk, and obviously I have an escalation path through our CIO, but ultimately escalation lies with the mission owners. And so with our director of operations, two-star general, and with our director of the agency, Admiral Sharp, Vice Admiral Sharp, we escalate unacceptable risks to their level for prioritization, for resourcing, for if we need a little oomph, and we do that based on data. I don't think we could build a compelling case to leaders at that level without showing them the telemetry, showing our work.
Right. And then I wanted to get back to the personnel aspect of things. So it sounds like you have a lot of great data-driven ways that you're trying to bring in people for cyber talent. You're talking about HBCUs or other areas that you're bringing people in. What is your talent pool like right now? Because as great as it is to work for the government, the pay is not like what you would get at Google or at Apple or something like that. So, what is your talent pool like, and how are you trying to bring people in?
Right. So a couple things I should say there. One is I want to make sure it's clear. I mean, each of the measures, metrics, and models, I didn't mean that to be so alliterative, but each of those data points, we're constantly maturing those. So here's another M for you. We're constantly maturing those. And so while we're using them all operationally, we recognize that, from a data perspective, this is the beginning of a long journey. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. On the piece about workforce, so it's interesting. Obviously, there's 2 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs in the country and 60,000 in the national capital region. For all that and for all that industry can bring to bear, we've been semi-fortunate in that when we offer a acquisition, or offer an opportunity externally, we have tons of candidates. I mean, I recently advertised a position as a cybersecurity management officer, and we had 80 external candidates apply. And after my scrub, we're down to 25 people we should interview. That's a good problem to have. And so I think people who apply to the government, there are a couple of different use cases there. There are people who are truly moved by our mission, and I know I'm one of them, in terms of doing something that counts. Decision makers and warfighters are relying on GEOINT to get home safe tonight. That's an incredible mission, and I think anybody who works with me would share that that's why we're here. The mission of NGA's cybersecurity program is to deliver trusted GEOINT, right? So I definitely believe that people are moved by ideology and/or mission. We also can offer. We certainly do work hard to offer competitive pay. There are industries or industry competitors who can offer more, but we have a real strong benefits program as well, a sort of total compensation package of incredible benefits. I mean, to my knowledge, the federal government offers about the best benefits package there is through, bulk buying and economies of scale. They can offer programs that many can't. Additionally, we directly and deliberately invest in cybersecurity training, conference attendance. We want people to gain new skills, maintain their current skills, network, sort of look ahead as well. And so we can offer a generous travel, training, and conference attendance budget that many companies can't, especially with the scrutiny on direct labor rates in many cases. That kind of stuff is often margin, or that kind of stuff is often can be easily cut by industry. I did spend a number of years in industry, easily cut by industry when things get tough, and the government typically doesn't have that problem. So, I'll keep up with us, and I'll let you know in a couple of years if the talent's drying up. But we've had pretty good luck so far. I also want to plug, you mentioned HBCUs, and very proud of the work our ambassador team. So cybersecurity has ambassadors that are part of our recruiting program. They're cybersecurity professionals who volunteer to join a team and travel to, when we could travel to places like HBCUs, those kinds of things. We're also huge proponents and customers of the Scholarship for Service program. The Scholarship for Service program offers federal government support for people completing their degrees in exchange for a couple of years of service in the federal government prior to, if they do take industry jobs. In fact, some of our absolute very best, I could name 5 cybersecurity professionals off the top of my head, have come from Scholarship for Service, and they are incredible. And so we're big proponents of that. We try not to miss a year, try not to miss active participation in that program, because that's how we build the workforce of tomorrow.
So what about training, Matt? How are you making sure that people within the NGA are getting trained and keeping their talents fresh?
Well, actually, that's an area of direct investment for us. We're working on defining career paths where people who may be in another occupation, geospatial analysis, financial management, can join the cybersecurity workforce. So we have that through our career service. We offer courses through our NGA college, and as I previously said, we definitely invest in as much training as we can get. We do have bulk buy training licenses and vouchers through multiple industry vendors, including sort of the big ones like SANS. We take full advantage of the federal virtual training environment and just the absolute ton of free courses and courseware available there. And many of our big partners offer whole curriculums that align with their service offering. And the quick examples are the AWSs of the world and the Microsofts of the world, who lay out a whole program for how someone can go from here to cloud expert. And we take full advantage of those programs as well.
So Matt, as far as cloud services go, how are you using cloud services to keep up with cybersecurity right now?
Well, cloud is incredibly flexible. We can auto-magically spin up or spin down whatever resources we need. Our virtual SOC for our W facing workloads is actually in one of our clouds. Our future from an agency perspective is multi-cloud, multi-tenant, hybrid with on-prem resources as well. So the cloud is part of NGA's future, certainly part of NGA's cybersecurity future. So many native tools there, so many pieces of valuable telemetry. It is a key part to our success going forward.
Well, I'd like to thank my guest today, Matt Conner. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Scott. It was a privilege.
Matt Conner is the Chief Information Security Officer at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. I'm your moderator, Scott Massioni, and you're listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Micro Focus.